And welcome back, and it is the 20th of May, higher plus 5 a day. And let's just jump straight in. Right, first question. Sine x in degrees equals minus 0.5. Write down 3 possible values of x. Okay, obviously infinite answers here, but it all involves you understanding the sine curve. So the sine curve does this. Now I know it's telling me, it doesn't actually say the negative one, but if I happen to use my calculator and found out which one is the answer, it will tell me the first answer is going to be minus 30 degrees. So really what I want to do is then basically just think about how to get the other answers, which I'm sort of sketching in now, which I can go either way. I can go left and right, more negative, less negative, but I basically want these answers here. So the approach I'm going to use is I'm going to acknowledge this is 180. So therefore this gap here is 30, which gives me 210. Equally, this is 360 minus 30 is going to give me 330. And then basically I can just keep adding 360 to both of these numbers. So if I add 360 to 210, I get 570. Only wants 3, so that will do. But if I add 360 to 330, that's going to give me 690, etc, etc. Point is, it's really a question about, do you understand the shape of the sine curve? Next question. F of x equals this thing here, work out inverse. Now, because there are two x's, I need to use the y version of this solution. So in other words, I'm going to say that y is equal to my function. Then I'm going to multiply by the denominator, which is going to give me yx plus 8y equals 4x minus 1. I'm going to move all my x's, the thing I want, to the left. So that's going to give me yx minus 4x equals, now a bit messy here, so it's going to be 8y minus 1. That's fine, we'll come back and address that later. Which means that x factorising is y minus 4, which equals minus 8y minus 1, which means that x is equal to minus 8y minus 1 over y minus 4. But I'm going to correct this. I'm going to multiply top and bottom by minus 1, which is going to give me, now you don't have to do this step, but it probably is somewhere in the exam just to make it a bit neater. But like I say, you shouldn't lose a mark. Either way, that's going to be 8x plus 1 divided by, notice I've turned it around, 4 minus y. Or actually I've put an x there, that should be a y, shouldn't it? Because I haven't switched it over yet. So let's call this a y. Now, remember the important part, if you've left it there, you've lost a mark. Because the question is, what is the inverse function of f of x? And that is going to be, well, now I'm going to switch my y's for x's. So 8x plus 1 divided by 4 minus x. And that is my final answer. Next question. Okay, simultaneous equations. Notably, simultaneous equations which are non-linear, because this one has squares in. So let's rearrange this one first. So that's going to give me x equals 1 minus 2y, and then I'm going to put it into here. So that's going to be 1 minus 2y all squared plus y squared is equal to 1. Expand my brackets, we'll do it over here. So that's going to be 1 minus 4y plus 4y squared plus y squared is equal to 1. Collect everything together, so that's going to be 5y squared minus 4y. Okay, this has suddenly got a bit easier, hasn't it? The 1's cancel, so that equals 0, which is the same as y. 5y minus 4 is equal to 0, which means that y is equal to 0, or y is equal to, solve the brackets, 4 over 5. And then I'm going to use this equation here in order to work out my x values for each y. So if x equals 0, y equals 0, x equals 1 minus 0, so in other words, x equals 1. Okay, slightly harder with the second one. So 4 fifths times 2 is 8 fifths. 1 minus 8 fifths is going to give me 3 fifths, which is negative. So that's minus 3 over 5. Make sure my answers are clearly paired. So I tend to like to write it like this, 1, 0, and minus 3 fifths, 4 fifths. Either way, clearly linking my x and y values together as pairs. Next and final question today. ABCD is a rhombus. Now I'm going to stop right there. What do we know about rhombuses? Well, we know all the sides are the same length. We also know that it is basically a four-sided shape. But the other thing we know, and I haven't read the rest of the question, but my guess is this is going to involve this, is the diagonals cross at a right angle. Let's carry on, read the rest of the question. The coordinates of B are 14, 22. So it tells me that B is 14, 22. Okay. The equation of AD is y is equal to 2/3 x plus 4. Find the equation of the diagonal. There we go. Okay, so basically it's saying what's the gradient? Well, the gradient is going to be the negative reciprocal, which is minus 3 over 2. And it's going through the point B, so therefore I know I can use the point 1422, which means that 22 equals minus 3 over 2 times the x value, which is 14, plus c that I don't know. Let's do this carefully. So 14 divided by 2 is 7, times minus 3 is minus 21. Add 21 to both sides gives me 43. So c, not a very nice number, but c is 43, which means my equation of BC is minus 3 over 2x plus 43. Difficult question, but, and the reason I kind of knew where this was going without even reading the rest of the question, this has been a GCSE question several years ago, and I think it was IGCSE, but you had to spot or you had to know what a rhombus was. Anyway, find the exact length of the diagonal BC. Now, this is slightly harder because in order to do that, I'm going to need to find out where BC meets AD. I can't think of another way of doing it. Yeah, that must be right. In other words, I need to find out this point here where the two meet. I'm going to call it M for meeting. Let's do it. So minus 3 over 2x plus 43, equation I've just worked out, is equal to 2/3 x plus 4. Multiply everything by 6. I'm going to get my calculator out just so I'm ready. So multiply everything by 6. Well, 6 times 3 is 18 over 2 is 9, so that's minus 9x. Plus 43 times 6 is equal to 258. Not a very round number, but that will do. 6 divided by 3 is 2 times 2 is 4, so that's 4x. And 6 times 4 is 24. Let's collect. So add 9x to both sides, gives me 13x. Take away 24 from both sides, gives me 234. Then hope that this gives me a nice number. So do 234 divided by 13. I'm on my calculator. So 234 divided by 13, thankfully, is a nice number, which is 18, which means I can then calculate my y. Which one shall I use? Yes, let's use this one here. So y is 18 times 2 over 3. And then I'm going to add 4. So that tells me that y is equal to 16. So y is equal to 16. Now, remember, all I've done is find the m value. So I found out that m, I'll write it here. So m is equal to 18, 16. And b is equal to 14, 22. So the length from b to m is going to be what's Pythagoras. So my x value is changed by 4. My y value is changed by 6. And 4 squared plus 6 squared is going to be 2√13. However, that's from b to m. And the question says find the exact, in other words, as a third, find the exact length of the diagonal b to c. Well, it's going to be twice that. So therefore, it's going to be 4√13. And that is my final answer. What a good question. As I say, that's similar, not the same, but that's similar to a question that appeared in an exam recently, which is why I kind of knew where it was going. Either way, really good question. Make sure you understood how to do that one. And obviously the whole thing is made very difficult / impossible if you don't know about the diagonals bisecting at right angles. That's it. Questions done today. Hopefully they went well for you. Do let me know how they went, and I'll speak to you tomorrow. Thanks all.